Okay, are you happy? Okay, when I got that, I was like, ooh.
Come on in. Yep. What's your name? There we go. Go on in. Jimmy? There you go. Yeah. Perfect. Go on in. How you doing? Yeah, okay. Not too bad. All right. Go on in. Have a seat. Hang on a minute.
Does anyone feel awkward sitting in a room full of people and being completely silent?
Yep.
While we're waiting for people, this image that's up, I think you can all see it. What's wrong with this picture? What's anybody's thoughts on what's wrong with that picture?
What picture? Oh, okay. Where should we start?
Any context you like. I'm just
Any
curious
more
of
context?
your thinking about it.
The guys in the back are missing legs.
You must be a graphic designer. Anything else? Yeah,
All
force
the books are
fed.
being shredded. No, they're being force fed.
So this was 1899 prediction of what education would be like in the year 2000. What's the concept there?
It's not true. People not thinking for them.
Yeah, so that's it. Yeah, so they're looking at in the future, technology is just going to solve everything.
Right?
We don't have to do nothing. We just sit there and. Well, how accurate is that? How accurate was their prediction?
I hope not. Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
I guess that was a pretty long time ago for them to predict something like that happening. And
Hey, it's
for,
9:46,
like, technical,
man.
like, revolution to happen in the 2000s, right? So it's a little over-exaggerated, but...
She started already.
Oh, the talking head started already? Dawn, how dare you? I know, Dawn is ridiculously efficient to apply. So Kat's here. Everybody, this is Kat Bensler. She's the program manager for graphic design. Don, I'm sure, has introduced himself, and then for those of you that don't know, I'm the education manager, so I'm basically Don's hands at the facility while he's not here, which is basically always. So
Who is Don?
Don is this wonderful gentleman right here. He didn't introduce himself, he just started talking. This is Dr. Don Ramos, our Vice President of Education. He's been with the company forever.
Yeah, no problem. We were just, I was just starting the chat, waiting for you guys to show up.
Orientation.
Hi, Kat.
We're missing a few people, but I'll close this for now when somebody shows up. All right, Don, sorry to have interrupted. Yeah, no problem. We were just starting with
So, well, we were just talking about this postcard image that I put up. And,
you can ask them. This is the
one of the things that I wanted to point out about this is that, you know, in thinking about the future, we get stuck in our past, what we know, our past technologies, our past ways of thinking, our past concepts, etc. And one of the things that this illustrates is that education back then was conceived of a certain way, and even today it's still conceived of in this way in many of our institutions, particularly in universities. And that is that there's an expert person who knows everything, godlike beings, which are instructors, and they have access to all complete knowledge, and students are these passive receptacles of knowledge, and we pour that information into their heads, and then the students regurgitate it back on tests, and that's how you educate people. So I said what's wrong with this picture is because we've learned a lot since then, and that model makes sense maybe in a couple of situations, but for the most part it doesn't work. It doesn't even make sense anymore. So in this presentation today, what I want to do is I want to talk about the Center for Arts and Technologies sort of big picture, how we think about education, what we're trying to do, what you're involved in, what you're committing to and being here with us, because it's not traditional education. And sometimes we have problems because students still think that that's what we're doing, and it's not. Examples of that would be students that sometimes will say, "Oh, I can just go on lynda.com for $200 and get like all the same information. I don't, you know, why am I paying you this money and everything?" That would probably be based on this kind of, I don't know which direction your video is, but that would be based on, it's above my head, on this kind of concept of education where it's just about knowledge, it's just about, you know, giving you a bunch of information. Typical things like methodologies for that would just be a straight lecture where hundreds of people come into a lecture hall and someone talks to them for 2 hours and then they go away and that's it. So what we're going to do is give you the overview of what the Centers is about and what you're involved in and how we're viewing education and what we think we're doing with curriculum and all that. And then at the end, I want to go through briefly about some specifics about the GDWD program and how the concepts we're talking about relate to that, and answer some specific questions, at least for the first 2 quarters, in terms of specific courses. Why are you taking this course? How does it relate to the big picture? So that's what we're doing. And Matt and Kat can jump in any time if they would like to, and so can you if you have a question or if you want to make a comment or whatever. Please feel free to do that. Anything before we start?
Then we have 3 computers to have.
Welcome to your new job. So many people, I have this quote, I liked it. Many people get depressed when they lose focus or motivation. All of us, and you will likely during your time here face times when you won't feel motivated and you might even be depressed, or you might feel overwhelmed. You might feel like, oh my God, other people are so much better than me. I'm whatever deficiency is your favorite deficiency that you like to think about. Oh, I'm too this, I'm too that, I'll never make it, and you want to give up. But what we're really focused here on the Centers is success. And people that are successful are successful because they learn how to stick with their goals and not let their emotions determine their action. Those feelings, I know they feel like they're real and they're true, but keep in mind, feelings are just feelings. They're not reality. I'll give an example that I use a lot for myself personally, and that is when I say, I feel overwhelmed. Am I overwhelmed because I feel overwhelmed? Is it true that I'm overwhelmed? You know what? You get what I'm saying? Because what I find is I don't know that I'm overwhelmed, literally, until after it's done. If I just stick to it and try it, I may find at the end that I was a bit overwhelmed over my head. But the feeling of that being overwhelmed is one of the things that causes us to give up and stop, and therefore it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Woody Allen said 80% of success is just showing up. I'm challenging you to just keep showing up regardless of how you're feeling. Just keep trying. Just keep at it. Because Kat believes that the number one indicator for success is persistence. But persistence towards what? Persistence in deliberate practice. I'll talk about that in a sec. That's fueled by passion. Why passion? Because if you're not passionate about something, it's really hard to be motivated. If you're here because you're trying to please your parents or some other authority person in your life or something, it's going to be tough to be motivated. But if this is your passion, then let that be the fuel for your persistence. And then so you have persistence in deliberate practice fueled by passion in the pursuit of a smart goal. We're going to help you with the SMART goals and the deliberate practice. You have to bring the passion and the persistence. So talking more about this idea, this slide looks at the development as education is development rather than education is a bunch of information. So what we have is 4 levels of development, and on the right side, the value or potential success in a complex world that provides. So at the first level are isolated scabs. We all have scabs. Scabs are skills, knowledge, abilities, and behaviors. But at the first stage level, I mean, we all have that, but they're not integrated, they're not developed, they're not focused. So what's the value of that in our world, in our complex world, and particularly in the employment field and relative to jobs that you might be getting? Well, there's little to no value. There's lots of people, there's lots of supply and low demand for isolated skills and such. But those skills can develop into a second level, which are successful behaviors. These are thinking and actions that result in results, and particularly if they're with increasing quality, speed, and efficiency. So, is that valuable in the world? Well, it's somewhat valuable. It's depending on the need. If you can bring some successful behaviors to a gig, to a job, to an employment, to a contract, it may be valuable to you, or may be valuable, to the people that want to hire you. But it depends on the need and how many people there are that do that, and the cost and time to develop into the third level, which is competency. So next is the successful behaviors can lead to competency. Competency means consistent, successful results for desired outcomes in specific situations that are at above average level. So is that valuable? Yes. That's kind of the starting point for really strong employability or hiring in terms of contracts. After that, what's next? Expertise, expert status. So what's the difference between that and competency is consistent, successful, quality results for desired outcomes in any situation. And that's fast and efficient. So this is one of the things that distinguishes like really experts and masters and professionals from those who are just competent. And people at that level get top pay, top benefits, top salaries, and top prestige. So what's the point of that in terms of what we're talking about? Education as development, not as a bunch of knowledge. This is what we're talking about. Your what we want to do is to help you develop isolated scabs into successful behaviors and then into competencies. We don't expect anyone to become a master in this. Our program goals are entry level into a career or a profession. So what we hope that you'll get is at least successful behaviors, and hopefully up to a level of competency, at least in a couple of areas that are employable for you. So what's the fastest pathway to get there, to get to mastery and competence? Lots and lots of concentrated, deliberate practice. Now, by deliberate, we mean by design. It's designed to get you to there as quickly as possible. And practice, of course, is not just wanking away, but consistent disciplined action towards the goal. So the three things that I have here, the fastest way for you to get toward this development, lots and lots of concentrated, deliberate practice, coaching and mentoring, and as I've mentioned before, just keep showing up, 100% consistent participation. What this requires is, I put at the bottom, trust and commitment to the curriculum and to the coach, so that the apprentice can stay focused on the assigned practice path. This is the commitment that we're asking of you. We're asking you to trust and commit to the curriculum. Now, the curriculum and the coaches, which are us. So in this path of development, deliberate practice by design really means the curriculum. So practicing this specific curriculum will get you, we know it will get you to the desired goal, to competency, because we've done this for a long time. So the college has done its job by spending a lifetime in development of tried and true, proven paths with coaches and mentors who have achieved competence or mastery. And your job is to trust, commit, and immerse yourself in the process. So I don't know how you feel about that. I don't know if you thought that's what you were doing in education, but that's what this is about. If you're having the old idea around education that you're just going to come here and we're going to pour knowledge into your head and you're kind of a passive receiver of that knowledge and then you go memorize it and spit it back on a test. Wrong. That's not the model, and it will not lead to expertise or success. So stop thinking of this as education. Start thinking of it as your first industry position. And think of yourself as an apprentice in training, and we're your first industry coaches and mentors, and we want to partner with you on success as professionals, and we want to welcome you at the end of this as colleagues in our industry. Some of our expectations around this being your first job, we try as much as we can to model our education development around what happens in industry. And a lot of the expectations are the same. For example, this is full-time work. Think of this as a 5-day a week, 40 to 50 hour at least work week. Be professional, always. Professional behavior in every aspect. Show up, be on time. Part of what that means to be professional. We have someone coming in. Hello. So part of what professional means is showing up and being on time. Living and dying by deadlines, critically important. In the work world, if you miss a deadline, you don't get paid, or perhaps you get fired or at least reprimanded. Sorry, we have more people coming in? I can't actually see the door, but I can see all the heads looking at the door, so that's a good indicator. Next time somebody comes in, everybody please just turn and look at them and stare. Okay? So being professional, show up on time and show up and be on time. Live and die by the deadline. This is really serious. And one of the things we find is people coming out of traditional education, particularly from some high schools, there's a real lackadaisical attitude towards assignments and stuff. Oh, come, turn it in whenever, not turn it in late, whatever, this kind of stuff. Part of the training for professionalism is professionals get the stuff done on time. When they make a commitment to a deadline, they meet the deadline. So we want to hold you accountable for that, not because we want to be authoritative masters over you and lord it over you or nothing, but because that's part of the development of professionalism. You need to acquire that habit and that mental state. Treat the classroom like a business workspace or a studio. Again, same kind of thing. This isn't home and this isn't like high school or that kind of thing, or even college sometimes. Think of this as your first job, and think of the facilities and equipment as a business's equipment and facilities, and treat them professionally. This is the time to develop those habits. Push yourself to learn and practice and advance outside of the classroom, not just in the classroom. Again, this goes back to passive education. And take advantage of all the resources. There's a lot of resources here at the school, including a lot of good people with a lot of knowledge and experience that want to help you be successful. Take advantage of it. Take full advantage of it. So what's this process of apprenticeship in terms of this being your first job? But it's kind of weird because it's actually also education. It's both education and a job kind of thing. Well, I'll just focus on two things. One, you need to focus on developing from a dependent to self-directed learners. And two, to develop behaviors that distinguish you as professionals as opposed to amateurs. Those are two areas. So in terms of this process of dependent to self-directed, there's 4 stages that's identified by this fellow Grow, who's did a number of research on this. There's 4 kind of stages in this as well. We expect most learners to come into the college as dependent learners. So the courses are designed expecting you to be a dependent learner. So we're going to push you, but we're not going to push you as hard in the first quarter as we are progressively through. We're going to try to get you to a self-directed state of development by the end of it. So in the first state, dependent, teachers are typically more like authority, and we give you informational lectures, drill and practice, etc. Stage 2, students become interested learners, and we try to motivate and guide you in that. Level 3, become involved learners. You're involved in your own learning. We become more like facilitators. And 4th, final, self-directed, where we're more like coaches and mentors and consultants with you in your careers and your professions. So let it be known that we consciously, and you should consciously be wanting to move through these levels and arrive at self-directed. And some of you may already be self-directed in some areas, but not in others. So development, it's not like an overall panacea that if you are self-directed in one thing, you're self-directed in everything. So you have to apply this to each area that you want to be successful in. The second part of the process is behaviors that distinguish professionals from amateurs. So secondly, first you're going to develop as self-directed learners, and secondly, you want to focus on developing those behaviors, hopefully those successful behaviors that will develop into competencies. And so what I've done here is I've just taken, by the way, my PhD research was on development of employability skills, or said another way, what are the gaps between what colleges graduate, what colleges think they're doing, what students think they have, versus what employers and the world thinks of them. And there's a gap between that. There's an employability gap and an expectations gap. There's been a huge amount of research on this. Constantly, still every week something new comes out on that. What I did was just took one of the many studies that were done. This was 4,500 companies were interviewed regarding what the gaps were. And here's some of the things they said. This is the reason for discipline or being fired. Lack of work ethic, unethical behavior, failure to follow instructions, ineffective in team, can't work with other people well, failure to take initiative, there's the self-directed part and the initiative part, missing assignments and deadlines. I highlighted that because I had previously said before that, live and die by the deadline. Get your assignments in. Learn to do this. Poor ability to communicate verbally and at the bottom in writing. Inappropriate use of technology and being late for work. So this is the main reasons that people failed at their work or were fired from their work or had to have discipline. On the other hand, what they said that leads to promotions are things like the opposite: taking initiative, networking with people, self-management, team effectiveness, leadership, followership, perspective, show and tell, organizational savvy, technical competence. You'll note I put that in blue there. Hopefully it's in blue on your side, because going back to that concept of what people think they're doing in education, a lot of people that come to our school think that it's the only reason they're here is to learn the technical skills. And technical skills, we're not dismissing that. I mean, we're a technical and arts college, so we know it's huge. But the technical skills are just the foundation. Everybody's expected to know the technical skills. Like you're not going to distinguish yourself as a professional because you know how to use Photoshop well. Every friggin' professional graphic designer knows how to use Photoshop well, really well. So those aren't the things that are going to distinguish you. Those are the base level stuff that you got to just have down pat. By far the most significant issues and values are basic professional attitudes and behaviors. And one of the ones that I want to just emphasize here with respect to your time at the center is just respectful communications that's focused on issues and focused on your outcomes and your goals. Not getting caught up in the emotions and the other stuff around it, but stay focused, persistent focus on those behaviors that lead to success. So at the college, we practice something that we started a while ago called the Triple C campaign, and you'll probably hear about it or see posters on campus. Just a reminder, common courtesy on campus. Just a reminder to be professional, use common courtesy. If you do have disagreements, use facts and logic. Don't use personal attacks. One of the key things that distinguishes the amateurs from professionals is amateurs attack the person rather than the logic or the facts of whatever is being argued. So, you may hate a certain kind of music as an example. If you go on forums, I know you've all seen this, right? Someone will make a comment that they like Metallica, for instance, and the other person will, somebody else will go, what a friggin' idiot, you fucking moron, that's, Metallica's the worst band in the world, and things like this. It's like, okay, that's wonderful that you have that opinion. Totally non-professional because it's completely irrelevant to the facts and completely unaware of the fact that we have different tastes and things like this. Communicate a lot, often and early. Do not let things build up. As soon as you have an issue, when it's still small, talk about it, get it out, deal with it. And part of all of this is develop an openness to critique as part of the mentoring coaching development process. Don't think of it as a judgment of you. Now, going back to traditional education, how do we do in traditional education, like in high school and a lot of college? How is things typically done? Well, the way they're typically done is they give you a bunch of information, then they give you an assignment, and you go off and do your assignment all by yourself, say you're writing a term paper or something, right? And you write it, you rewrite it until you think it's good, and then you bring it forward to be judged by the expert instructor who tells you whether or not you're good enough or bad enough. And a lot of us take this really personally, right? Like, oh my God, I failed. I'm horrible. I'm awful. I'm never going to be able to do this. This goes back to previously what I was saying about being overwhelmed and such, right? When I did my PhD research, I interviewed about 35 game companies. One of the things that they said was, no business, and particularly not the game company, we don't work that way, and neither do graphic design artists and such either, by the way. Everybody we're all part of a pipeline. I'm not sure if you know that term pipeline. Pipeline is a word that's used in many industries to describe the path that goes from a raw material through to a final finished product. And there's a lot of people along that way. It's almost never that you just have, one person, raw material to finished product, it's all done and it's over with. And then that goes out to be judged by the world, like the first time anyone's ever seen it. No business would want to do that, because that's putting a lot of risk on the chance that that's awesome to begin with, that this one person did it. So a pipeline, each person contributes, and what the game companies all told me was everyone along that path, they're part of it, they need to get constant feedback. As soon as they do a little bit, they show it. They do a quick sketch of what they think the character should look like, as an example. They show it to everybody, and you have discussion. You don't take it personally if someone says, "Oh no, totally wrong character. Got to be more dark, more sinister," or something, right? And then everybody agrees. So it's part of the start now to develop and learn how to give critique, not attacks on the person. Critiques of the work that are positive and beneficial, and how to receive those for yourself and show your work and be part of this. Learn how to work with teams and be part of a pipeline. So I want to move on to our overall educational philosophy. And by the way, again, I'll just state, if there are any comments or questions, feel free to ask. I know this is a talking head kind of thing, and even more so since I'm on a big screen. Hopefully my head is not like 10 times larger than I am in real life, but I don't know, maybe. I want to talk about educational philosophy overall. How does the center position itself philosophically and overall objectives of programs? Some of this we've kind of already covered, but I want you to know that we consciously and have since the beginning of the school started, originally in 1979, I think, as a co-op of artists. We position ourselves between a trade school and a university. Trade schools focus on immediate jobs and technical skills. They leave out a lot of broader, bigger stuff. Universities focus on talent, breadth and depth, and long-term success, which is all good, but they a lot of time leave out the technical skills. Both of them typically leave out attitude and professionalism, not part of the education. So the university is more about development, the trade school is more about the skills. We're right in the middle, and we add professionalism and attitude to that. So going again, what that hopefully leads to at your time here is orientation to the industry and to jobs, competence and expertise development, and thinking of this as your first job. So that's the overall for the school, how we position ourselves. What about the programs? The main goal of our programs is entry-level marketability, employability. And we define that again as per the industry. So competencies, attitudes and behaviors, professionalism in that regard, breadth and depth, and some aesthetic development as well. We're not a school that focuses fully on aesthetic and talent development, but we do include it because it is important. But one of the things you should know is that expertise, people that are expert, say they're an expert violinist or expert tennis player or expert chess player or whatever they are, that expertise has been studied extensively. And what they find is that most people just think that expertise is a natural talent, right? You're either born with it or you're not. You're either a great artist or you're not. The reality is that the people that achieve high level of prestige in their fields get there through that deliberate practice. That's where that term came from, by the way. It came from the research on expertise. It comes from, in fact, the average, they say, for this stuff is 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. By the way, that's not 10,000 hours of just doing it. You can play tennis for 10,000 hours and still be a rank amateur. It's 10,000 hours of deliberate practice towards a smart goal, and that with the coaching. So, the four areas that we're looking at in terms of marketability are centering around competencies, skills, knowledge, abilities, behaviors. Going back to that original slide, right? These sets of whatever skills and abilities and knowledge, etc., you bring, we want to focus them in successful behaviors and then focusing them on competencies. At professionalism, breadth and depth, and aesthetics. Industry, by the way, measures these by what's called ROI. That stands for return on investment, which means that I'm not a great artist, but I bet if I spent 3 years drawing a picture, I could probably make it pretty damn good, right? Good enough that someone might look at it and go, wow, this guy's got talent. We better hire this person. Of course, when they put me to work, and it took me 3 years to make my first drawing for them, I would be fired immediately. So what they're looking at is quality, yes, but also speed and efficiency. So in terms of your development of competencies, it's not just about the finished product. It's about you developing competency where you can do a quality product, even if it's not the best you could possibly do, but a quality product that meets the needs quickly and efficiently. And in our school, we assess this not so much by that, but we don't really use typically the written tests and stuff. A lot of what you'll be assessed by is your assignments and such. So when you're trying to do an assignment, you may get into a thing where you really love this assignment and you want to spend a huge amount of time on it. But keep in mind, just like in a business, you may not be able to do that. You have to get it done at a quality sufficient for what the objectives of the course and the assignment are. If that makes sense. So the overall program objectives of marketability and employability within each individual course. So we've looked at the college as a whole. We've looked at the program and what we're trying to do. Now, in terms of the courses, all the courses fit into that model. So every course is designed to develop some level of knowledge, skills, ability, behaviors, hopefully in a way that are going to lead on a curriculum, on a path towards competencies and mastery. So within any particular course, the goal might be technical, which includes not just the technology itself, but also operational procedures, like I mentioned about the pipeline, right? So it may be how a particular process works in the pipeline, how you use Photoshop to do a particular task relative to a larger task, etc. It could be focusing on professionalism. It could be focusing on interpersonal skills, working with teams and other people. It could be on aesthetics. By the way I'm defining aesthetics here is to create product that produces the intended experience. So we're not really, in business, the hard reality of business is that we're trying to create products for other people, not for ourselves. So in a sense, it doesn't matter whether we like it or not. What's critical is what we created producing the desired responses in the people that are receiving it, the audience for that. That's, from a business standpoint, that's how I'm defining aesthetics, right? So your sensibilities as an artist, as an aesthetically mature person would be, are you able to understand and develop something that will resonate with the intended audience? Not whether you like it or not, if that makes sense. Breadth and depth and deliberate practice. These are all areas by which any individual course could focus on. So this leads us to the final thing here, which is kind of an overview of the curriculum itself. And this is a complicated slide, so I'm not expecting you to fully look at every detail on this slide. But what I want to point out is what I have here is I've taken the courses that are in the first 2 quarters, and then I've created a chart that has by the way, can you see my pointer? my pointer on the screen? No? Okay. That looks at the knowledge, skills, abilities, and behaviors in 4 columns. And then the primary course objectives that I just covered, the technical, professional, interpersonal, aesthetic, breadth and depth, and deliberate practice as the letters. And then, so what I've done is just kind of mapped out courses, each course, what are they focusing on in terms of those things and in what areas. So for example, business technology is a course that you'll all take, and it's primarily just focused on technical skills, knowledge and skills that you're going to need. And similarly, foundation art and design, technical skills with some aesthetics in there. So there's some level of aesthetic ability, aesthetic knowledge. Introduction to computer graphics, technical skills again, knowledge, skills, and abilities. Internet publishing, technical as well as breadth and depth. Now in a minute I'm going to just review these courses in quarters 1 and 2 and just talk a little bit about why you're taking it, like the rationale for it. So I won't get into it at this point, but just to point out that each of these have basic things that you're building upon, and you'll see that as we go through here. I'm gonna skip to the next 2 quarters. You can see is that as we build the program, more and more of the objectives are being met in more and more of the full set of knowledge, skills, abilities, and behaviors. So this again goes back to what I was talking about development into self-directed learners. We're taking you towards self-direction as well as competency. And then, so by the way, graphic design, graphic and digital design is a 1-year program, so it's 4 quarters. GDD ends after quarter 4, and these are all courses that deal with the design, except for going back to quarter 1, except for like business technology and internet publishing, which are more fully technical skills rather than any kind of design skills. But in those who are going on to that are in the full full GDWD program, graphic design and web development, when we get to the web development aspect, it goes back to technical skills. It's primarily all technical skills at that point. Why? Because there's just a lot of technology to understand, a lot of technical skills to develop, and hopefully, I mean, the GDWD program, you take all of this anyway, so you're developing all of those other attributes and competencies, and now you're adding to this aspect. And I don't know if there's people that aren't taking the full GDWD, but this isn't a sales pitch. This is my honest opinion as a professional and a person that's done this for a long time. If you want to maximize employability, get through this stuff, because this is the most highly employable skill set. If you have this in addition to the design, you're going to rock. Okay. So, but of course, I also know that some people are just not naturally talented or naturally what would be the word? Naturally have a natural proclivity towards programming. It takes a special kind of mental way of thinking about stuff. So I know it's difficult for some people. So to finish up here, I'm going to just talk about the courses in your first 2 quarters, and I'm not going to go into depth about a description about them or nothing. I just want to answer a simple question, and that is, why am I taking this course? So when we go through this, think about this in the context of the big picture that I've been talking about. Developing you as self-directed learners and developing your competencies so that you're distinguished as a professional versus an amateur. So business technology, this is a base level computers, networking, and standard business tools. And why do you need it? Because virtually almost every business on the planet uses these things, and you just have to know it if you're going to be able to be functional in it, especially if you're going to be able to develop speed and accuracy and efficiency. Foundation of art and design. Well, I think some of these are obvious, but we'll say them anyway. Competitively successful graphic design work demands a strong visual eye and creative artistic expression that's built upon the application of basic principles and elements of design. So you have to understand the basic principles of and elements of design, which is what we're giving you in Foundation of Art and Design. Introduction to computer graphics. This is primarily technical skills, but not solely, because and the reason you're taking is because the foundation level knowledge and skill with the industry standard tools, at least in the graphics industry, and the processes is valuable for any tasks involving graphics, and that's across all fields and not just graphic design. Lots of other people take this course because it's applicable to many areas. Internet publishing. This is an interesting one. It's the foundation for, it's kind of like foundation knowledge for the web development stuff, but it's designed for designers. So it doesn't go heavy into the technical stuff, but it gives you the basic knowledge for related to the infrastructure and the technology and the language like HTML that's behind that. And by taking this course, it's valued in many industries and gives a competitive advantage over those that don't have it. It increases your solutions when you're looking for solutions for problems in your designs and such. The understanding of what's technically possible or how to do something is going to increase your ability or your option. It's going to increase your ability to troubleshoot or avoid problems. It's going to increase pipeline efficiencies and end product effectiveness, and it's foundational for continued learning. If you are going to go on to learn more in the technical area behind, like the back-end stuff, this is foundational for it. Introduction to video production. So it's interesting because nowadays video is just everywhere. It's used in every field pretty much, and opportunities for those who can capture and produce videos that's to the point meaningful and a professional level. Those opportunities increases potential for getting paid for your work and getting the gigs. Design studio. This first design studio focuses on branding, and just about every business, freelancer, and corporation needs a brand identity. So it's foundational. It's one of the foundational design aspects for you to understand. Then we get into professional development and scheduled labs. Now, scheduled labs are basically an opportunity for deliberate practice. So that's where your courses and your instructors and mentors give you the path and what to practice. Again, what you bring to the table, you have to do the practice. You have to participate 100% in the deliberate practice. And scheduled labs and labs are for that purpose. Professional development, as its name says, is focused on your development as a professional. And so I worded this a little bit tongue-in-cheek in that I said, perhaps 1 in 500,000 people so talented they can act any way they like. And in other words, they can be total a-holes, and people put up with them anyway because they're just so dang talented. There are a couple people like that, but for the rest of us, industry and society expects minimum levels of self-awareness, self-management, and in terms of hiring, vastly prefers competence in the key areas that professional development covers. So in your orientation later, they'll talk a little bit more about professional development. But it's going back to that whole model that I showed you, where we're in the middle between the trade and the university and such. Professionalism is a key element getting the job, assuming that you have the technical skills, of course, and keeping the job and being successful at the job. So that's in quarter one, and that's kind of how all of the courses fit into the overall big picture. And going back to what I said before, a lot of the first courses are technical. You just have to get through the technical skills. You have to learn Photoshop. You have to learn Illustrator, etc. What buttons to push and stuff. The fastest way to learn that is by 100% commitment and jumping in and practicing the assignments and such, right? Oops. This slide is wrong. Should be quarter two courses. So quarter two courses, we have Introduction to Digital Video, Digital Illustration, Internet Marketing, Vector Animation, Design Studio, Life Drawing, and then again we have Professional Development and the Labs. Professional Development and the Labs, same rationale. But Introduction to Digital Video, this is about, so you've learned how to take video and get good quality product and direct it and all that kind of stuff. And then now in this course you learn how to edit it. And editing it is a separate thing all on its own. So this is both the technical skills of editing as well as the sort of aesthetic decision making around editing and such. And it's just nowadays it's fundamental for piecing together media assets in a linear format. And it's used all over the place. Digital illustration. This entry-level illustration class introduces you to essential tools and addresses methods and techniques used in the profession of illustration. So this is across many fields: advertising, brochures, books, other forms of communication. Internet marketing. So the knowledge of marketing is actually critical for anyone going into any related online business or marketing fields. So graphic designers, whether you're working for someone else or for yourself, you need to understand internet marketing and marketing in general, because most probably of the products that we produce will have some kind of marketing objective to it. Vector animation. Increasingly, vector-based animation is making its way beyond web and showing up everywhere, from television ads to theatrical films and video and DVD. So having this ability is going to greatly increase your work opportunities as well as your creative options. Design Studio 2, so second Design Studio. This one's focusing on, again, skills in graphic design, principles, tools, processes that are foundational for a starting point in a career. So it is basic design stuff, but not so much 100% focused on just the skills like using Photoshop or Illustrator or something, but actually in the application and thinking about how to design. Then life drawing. Drawing from observation, the organic life around us is critical to any artist's development. And the human form is a key theme in graphic communications, and accurately and artistically representing it is the valuable ability. So this is an interesting one. We added this a few years back as a result of lots and lots of discussions with students and instructors and industry people who all thought that this was a really good thing and not so common in graphic design. But if you think about it, any real artist, if you take any art program, it's going to have life drawing in it. It's considered a base key idea and ability and skill in the arts, and it's worked out really well. So that's basically where we're at. I have a couple of quick just ending things to talk about, but I wanted to open it up. You've been very quiet. Thank you for listening. You've been seems to me that you've been very respectful, which is nice to me. Thank you. But you may have questions or you may have comments or whatever. I would like to hear from you if you do. Anyone have anything you'd like to ask or say? Do you think this is all just bullshit, or do you agree with anything here? Thank you. It might not, I don't know, I'm not curious, is this strike you as what you expected to hear at this orientation, or is this kind of like, whoa, this is not what I was expecting? How so? Hmm.
What the heck is shaking?
Yes.
I'll probably need
Yeah,
to
your
read
success is,
more.
like we desperately want you to be
But
successful.
so far it looks
We want
fun.
we want you to be colleagues, professional colleagues with us, right? And be part of our network and our community. So these are we've designed our curriculum that way, and our whole college is set up around this idea. So if you participate 100%, if you trust and commit to the process and jump in and do
This
it,
is actually better than what
we're pretty confident,
Yeah.
that most, if not all of you, will be
Well,
successful.
because it's just
We
like,
wouldn't have taken you in
very
if we didn't think that was the
professional,
case.
first
So
of
you
all.
need to trust us with that. Don't
You
give
went
up.
to detail for us for what to expect that's coming, and it just kind of makes us at ease more. And tell us exactly what the college is looking for and the person that's a graphic designer, in the job place, the skills that are needed, and what to do in order to succeed in the course, which is most important. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things we find is that there are a lot of people that have said, I'm only here for the technical skills. I don't, professional development. I don't need professional development. Everybody else, I can see how, that person over there needs professional development, obviously, but I don't need it.
I definitely will say
I'm telling you right now,
I
if
think
that is
as
what
you
you're
go through your
thinking,
classes,
you probably need it the
you're going to think
most.
back to this more and more, because you're going to have those days where Don said you're going to get frustrated,
Even
you're going to get
top
emotional, you're probably going to
people,
feel
top
overworked
executives,
or whatever the scenario is, and that's
in
when you need to just stop
big companies
and
with
think
huge
back
amounts of
to
experience,
everything
knowledge,
that's been said
expertise,
here.
education,
Why am I
etc.,
doing this? What are
have
the
executive
reasons?
coaches,
What do I have
because
to
we
do to
all
get
need
through
coaching.
and just
We're all
become
unaware of
confident in this
our own,
and get on to
often
learning the
unaware
next
of our
level?
own
So, I mean, it's a lot of
ineffective
information and a
behaviors,
lot of overview
and
now, but just every time you get
and how
frustrated
those things are
or
sabotaging
throughout
us
the
and such like
program,
that.
think back to this,
We're
and
all unaware
it's going to become
of
more
sometimes of
relevant
how
to
we're
you as you're
perceived,
working through
or
it.
even unaware of how we're feeling. There was recently was talking with a professional executive coach for again for really big companies, and in their company that has thousands of employees, they did surveys. They found that the majority of them, even high-level people, could not identify their own feelings. Which is, you go, wow, really, and which I found amazing until I actually tried to do it. And I could vaguely kind of, I'm not feeling good or I'm angry or something, but the actual subtleties of our feelings we're often really out of touch with. So these things may seem to some people as being irrelevant to being professional, but they're not. They're like a starting point for it. So anyway, I'll stop there. But the point is that the professional development program is the only course where we focus solely on professionalism, and rather than technical skills and stuff. And it's based on many years of looking into what employers and have said is needed for and what they expect from people. So I challenge you not to look at it like you don't need it or whatever, but again, commit to the curriculum, jump in, 100% participate, make it work, get everything you can out of it. You'll get something out of it for sure. Matt, do you have anything to say? Okay. No, I wasn't expecting a question for me. I just wanted to know if you had anything you wanted to say to the group.
No, I've seen this now 4 or 5 times. I haven't lost that. I think your best performance is no, I think that the most important thing to just kind of remember, and this is coming from, we used to do a lot of these orientations for the animation department. And the animation department has literally 100% placement rate. Like, these students are coming out and getting jobs before they even finish. And what their department head was doing was emphasizing over and over again, this is your first job. This is something that you need to treat from day one like your first job. It's something that I went to this school for, I'm not going on with his PhD, but I spent 8 years finishing my master's degree, and I didn't get that at all through UBC, University of Victoria. A lot of that was lost on me. And when I came out, I found it. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know where I wanted to go. Luckily, I did find a career path that I really, truly enjoyed and was passionate about. But it's really, really important to jump into it at this point and say, okay, this is how I'm going to treat it. It's a job. I'm going to be professional. I'm going to show up 100% of the time, and you will reap the rewards by the time you leave. This program as well, graphic design, is very highly employable. A lot of the students, we just had a graduating class, and a lot of the students walk out here with jobs. They had jobs in their last 2 quarters because we set up opportunities for people to network, for people to do volunteer
Yeah,
jobs,
and keep in mind,
paid gigs.
pretty much all of our instructors
take advantage
are
of the
industry
teaching you
people,
and
industry
just
professionals.
don't forget the resources like Kat.
So going back to that idea about welcoming you to
I don't know if we really do too much
the
in the way of
community of
introduction,
professionals as
she's our
colleagues and
program
such,
manager. She's the graphic
starting
design
today as
Dawn and I are
as
architects.
apprentices
As well.
in this area.
But
These
when it comes
are
to
not
technical questions,
full-time
our
professional
graphic
teachers.
design staff
These are
top
people
notch.
working in the
And I'm
industry
very excited
who
for
are
you.
here because they want to share that and they want to help you be successful in joining that industry. And they want you to develop the types of abilities, skills, knowledge, practice, competencies, etc., that will be a benefit and a value to the industry and to their community. So treat them like that, not don't think of them like high school teachers or college teachers like that are just like academics or something. Right? And take advantage of learning what you can from them. They have a lot to offer. But like university, our courses are not, unlike a trade school. Trade schools tend to be like, often you'll have one instructor that takes you through the entire thing because they're just teaching you like one set of technical skills. We're going back to that, we're between the university and the trade school. We have, like a university, many teachers teaching their area of expertise. No one person can know everything. or be a total expert in everything. So they're all in their areas, and so that's this huge amount of resource. You can get expertise in all these different areas, but don't expect them to be perfect and know everything and have all the answers for every class and etc. There are people. Some of them only come in to teach one class because they're running an entire business as well as with many people in it, etc. So that's our situation. I'm just going to go ahead.
I think on that note, oh sorry, I interrupted you. I was going to say on that note, it's really good practice for going into the workplace. You're dealing with different instructors with different expertise. That's how the workplace is. If you were to come and work in my office, when I bring in a junior, I can train them and give them all the graphic design skills they need that they might be missing, but they also have to work with my boss and my printers, and they need to work with someone in
thanks for sharing
marketing
that. Awesome.
And sales and our online
If there's
manager.
no
And
other
that's
questions
how you're
or
gonna work with your
comments, I'll
instructors.
just
You need
we'll
to be
wrap
able to
this up.
adapt and relate
But I'll give
with
one last
them on a
opportunity.
professional
Anybody
level,
has a question
and
or a
understand
comment?
that they might not always be talking or know what the other person's doing in that classroom, but you're
Okay.
that person.
So
that
just the last two things, I
you're
did
kind
want
of
to
that
mention
link,
briefly
and
at
you
the end
need to
here
adapt and
the
be
rationale
able to
for
work with
tools.
all kinds of people.
What criteria do we choose the tools? Because we sometimes get asked this question. So the point I want to make is that the Center for Arts Technology doesn't just pick a tool based on one idea because somebody likes it or whatever. It uses a lot of different criteria for that. So some of those criteria include, or the key ones include, what are industry standard tools? Also, what are local market standards? Because often locally, say in Kelowna, if people are looking for work in Kelowna or Vancouver, there might be a tool that's used a lot there that's not used generally in the rest of the world or in the rest of the country, for example, or in the US or something. So we look at industry overall standards, also local market standards. We look at transferability of skills. So what tools are going to give you the maximum ability to transfer? So some tools might be really used, like highly used and really, people really love them, but they're really kind of proprietary. In other words, once you learn how to use them, you can't really apply those skills to other tools. So educationally, that's not so good, right? Because all we've done then is trained you to use one technology that you may or may not ever see that in the actual work world, right? So we look at things that provide the greatest amount of transferability of skills. We also look at the reputation of the tools and the value that it adds for your employability. So some tools could be really popular at a certain point where there's low supply of people that know the tool. So they're in high demand and it might increase your employability. So we might put that into the mix. Tuition consideration. Some tools are just so expensive that if we actually used them, we would have to raise tuition. So we would prefer something that has a higher transferability of skills over, particularly if it's a lower cost, so we can keep the tuition down. And then finally, program demands. Some tools, once we choose a tool, requires integration with other tools, and so it dictates that certain tools couldn't be used, for instance, because of that program demand. So that's the overall thing there. The last thing is just who to see about what. So you've met Matt. He's our education operations manager. He can help you with accommodations if you feel like you're needing accommodations. He can help you if you're having issues with staff or things like that, any high-level things. Or even if you just don't know where else to go, you can go ask Matt. If you have a class issue with your class, going back to professionalism, you need to try to create a professional relationship with your teachers. And part of that is being able to have open discussions about issues and concerns or questions or whatever it is. I know for some of us that's really difficult. This talking to people and communicating and stuff can be a problem for some of us. And but it's in terms of developing your behaviors, start at least trying to work towards that goal. And so if you have an issue, go to the source first, talk to your instructor first about it. If it doesn't work or something, you can then go to your program manager, and then you can go on up to the education manager, Matt. So the instructor, Pat, Matt, in that order. Tutoring or attendance issues or questions or concerns, again, instructor first, but also particularly if the instructor is not available, because they're working professionals, right? They're not just hanging out at the school with office hours and stuff, right? So if that's difficult, you can also see your program manager or the academic administration assistant, whose name is Naomi Monroe. You'll probably meet her later today. If you have anything that you need to deal with regarding withdrawals for any reason, including medical, or deferrals, or change in your program flows, or change in program altogether, Rachel Amber would be the first person to see. If you have finance, Jordan McQueen or Jocelyn Inns in finance. If you want to book additional labs, you'd go to the cage for that. And if you have attendance concerns or something that comes up you need help with, the Naomi, the academic administration assistant, or scheduling an academic records, that's Ann Pulowski. Those are the people to see.
And you'll see where their offices are when you go on your tour this afternoon after orientation. They'll walk you through. You'll see Naomi's big reception desk over in the education space, and where Ann is. Ann will also help you with things like scheduling. If you actually need to change a class, you need to modify a time. Some of the courses that you're taking, ICG for example, there are 4 sections of that course running, so if one time doesn't work for you, there is another time that's possible. One thing to keep in mind is that the way that we've structured the classes is to actually keep the graphic designers together. So for ICG, for example, when you're learning computer graphics, you're learning computer graphics, events, and promotion management students.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, your needs in that class are going to be different from their needs in that class, right? And so specifically, Kat will be teaching you that class, and the way she teaches graphic designers versus digital photographers night and day, because the pace at which she can move and the fundamental skills that she's going to teach you are going to be different from what they're going to need in other programs. So just keep that in mind when you are looking at your schedule, that yes, there might be some changes, but some changes won't be beneficial to you. And so if you do have a question about that, Anne will be able to help you, myself and Kat.
Okay. Well, I think that's it then. Thank you so much for your attendance and attention.
What's the cage?
I'll be on campus,
That's
by the
part
way,
your
the
tour.
week of
Right behind the
October.
reception desk
I think I'm
where we keep
arriving
all of
October
our
13th.
technical equipment, so our cameras, our microphones. You won't use it too often.
I might see you around if you want to chat.
HDMI cable
Don't hesitate to
and things that
say hi.
you might need to hook your laptop up to a random monitor. But there's a cage that goes across it, so it looks kind of like a little prison. So we just refer to it as the cage.
Okay.
But all these things, they'll all be part of your tour this afternoon. All right. Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
Yeah, next week. You walk in or you come out. I don't know where his office is going to be though. So We'll have to wait and see. So we have some time. Lunch is starting outside at 11:30. For anybody that's in the GDWD program, there are 2 steps that you're going to have to take before you can get one of your books and supplies, your most expensive asset in terms of books and supplies, which is your MacBook. The first step is to go to finance, and she has an agreement that you sign in finance that basically says this is, the property of the school until you graduate, at which point it's yours, so treat it that way. Or
thank you. Thanks, everyone.
And then the next step is going to the IT department, and they actually physically give you the laptop, give you a little rundown of it. So you do have half an hour, and Jocelyn's office is right outside, so if she's in there, this would be a perfect time to stop by early this morning and get that signed up. Because otherwise, you'll do it this afternoon. I know there's going to be a big rush. Everybody wants their laptop. The highlight of it. It's the highlight of the beyond. You guys probably couldn't sleep last night. You're thinking, oh, I get a new MacBook today. It's going to be awesome. The animation students, they get Alienware computers for their gaming, and it's ridiculous. Like, they're out there doing cartwheels with them. Like, it's just